Today we're in Huntersville, North Carolina at the McCoy Enslaved Cemetery, a deeply significant historical site. I'm joined by Kyle Scharf, the founder of Preserving Spaces, who is doing incredible work using 3D technology to preserve and share stories from sites like this. Join us as we tour the cemetery, learn about its history, and discover how digital preservation is bringing powerful narratives to life. I am in Huntersville, North Carolina, a stone's throw away from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am at the cemetery where formerly enslaved individuals are buried that were once enslaved by the McCoy family. And I am here with a familiar face that you all may know, because if you follow me on History Before Us, then you've seen me cross-promote some things for another YouTube channel, which is Hometown Chronicles USA. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Scharf.
Hey guys.
There he is.
Hey Murph.
You all know Kyle. And so Kyle does some interesting things outside of Hometown Chronicles USA, which he and I do, as well as some other projects that we work on from a documentary standpoint. And right now we're at a enslaved cemetery, and the enslaved individuals that are buried here were part of the McCoy's quote unquote property. Kyle, you received your bachelor's in anthropology, right?
Yep.
Down in Florida.
Yep.
And so you didn't pursue anything further as it relates to a higher degree. However, you got into some photography, and not only that, but you got into some cool stuff to where you do scannings of historic buildings, land, things from a geography standpoint, and you started a company that is called Preserving Spaces.
Yeah, I mean, it's a project. It's sort of a subset of my photography company.
Okay.
But yeah, I was a photojournalist before I went to college, or about the same time I started college. And so I wanted to do magazine journalism, but my minor was anthropology, and I ended up switching those and majoring in anthropology, thinking that I would do photojournalism for, National Geographic, Smithsonian, something like that.
Right.
That didn't happen. So I just continued being just a general photographer. I've shot everything throughout my career. And then I eventually came across this 3D sort of scanning technology, which I used for one of my photography businesses. Mm-hmm. And I sort of started scanning historic sites and buildings and stuff like that along the way. And this is one of the sites that I came across as I got more involved with the history stuff here in the area. And it's one of the sites that I've scanned before.
And how did you, with this specific site, and you and I have done a video out here before, mm-hmm. And I want you all to kind of look at the landscape, right? Like, if you came out here, you may just think it's just a wooded area, but researchers as well as historians and people that are from this community, or individuals like Kyle who have done scans out here, knows that there's much more significance to this site. And so how did you find out about this site?
Well, I've lived in the area I've lived in Huntersville since about 2016. And so we've driven past it a lot. And I first saw it when people were out here working, kind of maybe clearing this parking lot or something. I just saw this path back here. So in my effort to explore paths when I come across them, I was riding my bike around here one day and I just came back here, and that's sort of how I came across it. Also, as we've started talking about more cemetery areas, because I don't think I was really aware of fully what the history was here, but I've heard this site referred to, as we've done work here in the area as well. And so that's when I decided I'd take a second look and maybe scan it. And it also is a good test spot to just sort of test scanning outside, sort of scanning a site and seeing how we can use that 3D technology to interpret this space in a way that's interactive, but maybe also valuable, or to get people to actually interact with it. So I used this as a test scan site. It's fairly small, so it's pretty quick to scan. It's an easy scan to access online. It's not huge with a lot of data points or anything like that. And I just used this as one of my first outdoor scans. It's been a while since I initially scanned it, but I know you wanted to see what it looks like.
Yeah,
so
most definitely. Some of my
equipment.
Yeah, most definitely. Cal is going to give us a tutorial on some of the things that he does. But the St. Mark's Episcopal Church in 2007, it looks like, erected this kind of memorial that's here, and it says right here, the McCoy Slave Cemetery, we call it Enslaved, bears many of the indicators common to slave cemeteries in the United States. These include cultural practices that mix remnants of African traditions with those of Christian beliefs. It says first notice the use of periwinkle as ground cover, and not right now, but during the spring, you would see this in abundance.
Yeah.
The last time that we were out here, you saw it often. And so Thomas McCoy, 1873 to 1949, was the son of Albert McCoy, and members of the St. Mark's Episcopal Church established a perpetual trust to the parish in the 1940s for the care and upkeep of the cemetery at St. Mark's, as well as the Enslaved Cemetery. So this kind of gives us the information on how this came to be. And over here, in Cal, the last time you and I were out here, I think we saw like a liquor bottle.
What's that?
There was a liquor bottle
Yeah.
that was out here last time.
Sometimes people leave some little things
Yeah,
out here.
with people who
Oh, look,
who
there's a plant.
paid their homages
Yeah.
to folks. But right here, I think they removed it. Yeah, they removed the liquor bottle. But this is where individuals are leaving their offerings
Yeah.
to
You
the
got little
folks. Yeah, there's some stuff that maybe they
tiles.
found
Those have been
here.
there for a while. Those blue tiles, I don't know where they came
Yeah.
from. They've been there for a couple years.
And shells are very common in cemeteries, specifically those of African descent. So you find those shells very often in the cemeteries. And it says right here, it's erected by Albert McCoy's children to his slaves, Uncle Jim and his wife Lizzie, Uncle Charles and family.
Yep.
So what that says to me is that those individuals
You got
were
date down here,
very
too, 1928.
1928, yeah. So to me, that says that these folks were highly revered within that family structure. And so before we get started with that, Kyle, with what you're doing, I just kind of want to show you all, there's even a walking path that goes back a little bit further.
There used to be benches here.
Yeah, it did. It used to be 2 benches right here. Maybe they're upfitting them or something like that.
I know these have been updated.
Yeah. Now, have you been all the way back here?
No, actually, I didn't even know there was a trail over here.
Yeah, so there's a trail that
interesting.
that goes back a little bit further, and we'll look and see. So, Cal, do you know if this was part of a McCoy plantation, this specific site where we're at right now?
No, I mean, I actually, as far as the history of this site, I unfortunately don't know a whole lot.
Sounds like a Hometown Chronicles USA project.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, make sure that you all follow Hometown Chronicles USA on YouTube as well.
It is listed on that list I sent you.
Okay.
So it's notated.
Yeah.
Somebody knows more about the history than I do. I don't know very much about it.
So I've been back here before, and it looks like this has been put here on purpose.
What's that? This like
like this
ravine?
debris. Yeah. No, like
Oh, this
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like someone, because this trail goes a little bit further back, and I have been back there before, so it looks like perhaps someone's property line maybe is further back there, and they're saying the buck stops here.
Yeah, I don't see any signs, but yeah, it's hard to tell
Yeah,
if there's a trail back there or not.
yeah. And so we like to play it safe in the South because people are gun crazy, especially where Cal is from. Cal's from Florida, so you know,
Yep.
you got to definitely be careful.
Leather guns in Florida.
Love the guns in America. So yeah, Hometown Chronicles USA. Make sure to subscribe to that channel as well as History Before Us. So there's a couple of things that we saw over here that we didn't necessarily see before when there was a lot of grass. And it looks like there's some stones that are over here, perhaps maybe even a headstone. So before I ask Cal to give us an example of what it is that he does with scanning, we're gonna walk over here to see what this actually is. And these are prescribed fires that you see with some of the bark being burnt on the trees. These are prescribed fires that occur periodically. Now, what I always feel is creepy is that sometimes while we're walking, and specifically here at this specific cemetery, we know that there are probably bodies that we're walking on. Would that be accurate?
I would assume so.
Because it said there's 50 graves that are here.
Yeah,
on the
that
marker.
sign says that, and then that list I sent you to had the number as well. So
Yeah.
it's hard to know when you're walking through these forested areas, I guess.
Yeah. And Cal and I come to these spaces a lot, and we try our best to be mindful about where we're walking. But right now, because there's so many leaves down, you just can't really tell. But there's definitely some depressions in the ground, like there's one right here.
Well, I mean, this might answer your question too.
There's one right here. So we'll walk this way. And what do we got here?
I don't think it's a headstone, but unless it's flipped all the way upside down, but I don't.
We were hoping that this may have been a headstone. Is this the base of one? Right here?
No, I don't think so. It's
If so, no.
it's like concrete of some sort.
Was there a home that was here?
Yeah, there had to have been some type of structure here.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Look at this one.
There are depressions all throughout here, though. Yeah, so. Yeah, that's not a headstone. However,
Yeah, unfortunately, don't know what it is, but
yeah.
that was a good find.
Yeah, I didn't see it the first time we were out here.
No, I've never seen it out here.
Yeah. Yeah, cemeteries are one of our things that we kind of like going to and documenting and
Yeah, this
seeing
must
how
be
we
from.
can further some research.
Look at this. This is just like probably a bag of cement or something
Yeah,
that
yeah,
someone just
just some
tossed out
quickcrete.
here. Yeah.
That looks like it's probably
Yeah,
some
it just looks like a
quickcrete as well.
bag, and then
That's crazy.
they must have been building something over here at some point.
Yeah. But I do want to point this out because when I pulled up and I parked, and you hate to see this in places where people are resting or trying to rest peacefully, but this has become a graveyard also to lawnmowers. And I kid you not, there are 2 lawnmowers that have just been thrown over right
The
here.
burn barrel.
Which could be on top of bodies, we don't know, but it goes to show that even in death, sometimes people's lives aren't put into consideration. So there's that. Cemeteries are not dumping ground, people, or not dumping grounds rather.
Yeah, the dump's not really that far from here either.
No.
They could have been disposed of properly.
Yeah. So Cal, are you ready to give us this exhibition of what it is that you do?
Exhibition. Yeah, I can
All
show
right.
you how this works. Look, here's another one of those blue tiles.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
I wonder where they came from, because I've seen them out here for a long time.
Yeah. It's cold out here too, y'all. Today was 20 degrees to start, right?
Yeah, you want to start.
And then next week, yeah,
in the
I
morning.
told Cal,
I was
let's
like,
get started
nope.
early in the morning. I was like, we can get started early in the morning. He
That
was
is
like,
too
it's gonna
cold.
be 20 degrees. You know what? You're a smart man.
Yeah,
We're not gonna get started that
I don't
early.
even think I could speak.
Not effectively
My
anyway.
teeth would be chattering.
Absolutely. We also have an Instagram page that's called Hometown Chronicles USA, so please make sure that you check that out. All right, so where's going to be the best place for you to show us?
Yeah, we'll sit
how
over
this
here in
works?
this flat space.
All right, cool.
Whoever keeps this area up, or keeps this space up though, does a pretty good job at
Yeah,
it.
they do.
Because these are all new within the last couple years.
I think it's the church, though.
I'd say since COVID.
And at some point, we should probably go over to St. Mark's Church to do
Yep.
something with Hometown Chronicles USA,
Yep.
if we can get inside. I think that St. Mark's is one of the churches that still has the former enslaved galleries in there as well.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, because the church was built in the 1850s, I believe.
Yeah, and I didn't do this coordinated with, you know, the church or anybody that is a part of this. I know we've kind of heard that these places like to be involved with this type of stuff. I did this specifically as a test site, just
Yeah.
sort of. I think it's really helpful to do digital preservation, but I don't think that digital preservation is nearly as important as the physical preservation that's done here. We can scan this site, but if it gets overgrown and just lost to nature, then that's a huge loss still. The fact that there's still people coming out here and preserving this in the physical space is so
it's beautiful,
important, and it supersedes anything that I do tenfold. What I do can be deleted or lost or something like that overnight. But this, as long as there's a community behind it that comes out and keeps doing this stuff, this will last for generations.
Most definitely.
And people will still be able to come out here and learn about people who lived on this land at one point.
Definitely.
You know, who built this town.
Yeah.
So first thing you do when you're trying to scan an area is you get your tripod set up. And then we're going to use this, which is called a Matterport camera. Yep.
See that? See the words right there, Matterport. Boom. Little promotion.
Yeah.
Y'all can help us out with some sponsorship.
Yeah. Reduce my subscription and processing fees, please.
Wow.
So we slap this guy on here now.
This is interesting.
And lock it in place.
Okay.
And so this particular, Matterport's the manufacturer, the digital platform, all of that stuff.
Okay.
So the camera, manufactured by Matterport. The platform where the data is stored and viewed and exists is also Matterport. This particular platform exists mostly in a hosted digital online environment. So, I pay them,
like in the cloud?
Yes.
Okay.
So I pay them to make these spaces available for me for as long as I pay them.
Okay.
Which, you know, if something happens to me and my credit card goes inactive, all these spaces could be lost.
Right.
You know, they're predicated on the fact that I pay them. So that's one downside. Now there is data that we can remove from those projects, and then we can back that up anywhere that we want to. It's not as accessible by the general public. So part of the reason why I use Matterport is because I can create a scan, whether it's this space or a building or anything.
So you can do inside as well with this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the Matterport platform, their cameras were meant to be used exclusively inside. Previous to this model, none of their cameras worked outside.
Wow.
You'd have to use a different camera from a different manufacturer and then upload that data into their platform, essentially, just to make it a simple explanation. This is their first camera that is actually fully capable of scanning outside. And it can do that because it's LiDAR. Their first set of cameras were infrared, and so they had 6 lenses on the front, and then they had 3 infrared sensors on the front. And so those infrared sensors could see a distance, but they couldn't see past the interference that you get from like the UV light from the sun. So anywhere out here where the sun is hitting, there's UV light bouncing back off of that, and it would interfere with the infrared sensors. But because this is LiDAR, it's laser, and so that is powerful enough.
This is what makes it work right here.
Yep. So and I'll give you a quick rundown of the technology behind it, I guess. But let me make sure my battery's charged in here. I'll have to swap it out. So there's a little screen on the back, but it's not great. I have to switch the battery out. Or I'll just have to show you how it works and not demonstrate it.
And how long is the battery life for these?
I mean,
like 4 hours, 3 hours?
No, I mean, it doesn't really run off of hours. It really just depends on what you're scanning and how many scans you're doing and all that.
Okay.
So this is how it works, essentially, is we've got a camera lens on the front, and this is a super wide angle lens. Okay. So it can see,
here you go.
I don't know what the range of view is, but it's really wide angle. This is a LiDAR system. So inside of this section is a laser, and it shoots out into this little mirror right here. And then this mirror spins extremely fast. And it takes, I want to say something like 10,000 data points per second. So what will happen, it's got a motor down here. So what will happen is as it's running, it will take a photo, the laser will start spinning, and it will rotate a quarter degree or a quarter turn, stop, take a picture, rotate a quarter turn, stop, take a picture.
So it does a whole 360?
It does that 4 times.
Okay.
Yep. And as it's doing that, this LiDAR is spinning the whole time. So it's shooting, if you could just imagine coming out of this little crack, lasers just shooting out in that direction, taking a cross section of all the data here. So as it's spinning, it's rotating, and that laser is catching all the data.
So when you're inside a building that's somewhat darker, like does it light up?
No, you can't see the light.
So when I think laser, I'm thinking like...
No, it's not part of the visible spectrum. It's not harmful to like your eyes, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Got you. So when you came out here to scan this the first time, did you have any specific expectations? when you came out here, or was there anything that you thought was potentially
to this site specifically?
Yeah, to this site?
No, I'd been out here before, and like I said, I'd read this marker and I'd read that marker. I didn't really know too much about it. I just knew it was a quiet, flat space that was small enough.
Yeah.
There's other cemeteries that I've also scanned that were much larger, and I kind of did those as a testing spot as well. But this one was a nice small space that I could use, and it was the first outdoor space, historic space that I used this camera for. So when I got this one in, I really wanted to try its LiDAR capabilities. So I needed to come to just a small space that I could test.
Cool.
And I knew that this one, so I just figured I'd kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Forgive the pun, but scan the space that was historically significant. So I'll just bank that data, and if we ever needed it, we had it. And then also test the equipment at the same time, which is why I didn't do a lot of heavy research on the space.
Sure.
Sometimes also when I'm scanning these spaces, I just don't have the luxury. This one's not an example of that, but I don't have the luxury of doing a whole lot of research on the spaces, because I might have someone reach out to me and say, hey, we need you to scan this house. It's going to be demolished in a week.
Yeah, so
it's like I don't have time to research it. I just have to get out there and scan it as fast as I can before they start demolishing it. Or I've had some buildings where they start removing all the floor off of the first floor. So if you don't scan it quickly, you're just going to fall through the basement.
Yeah.
I have that one on my website. They put doors across the floor joists. So I'm just scanning each point on top of a door, just hoping that I don't fall through.
And your website is preservingspaces.com.
Preservingspaces.com, yeah. And you can see a lot of these spaces on there.
All right, so it looks like you're connecting it to an iPad.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just going to do a sample space on there.
Okay, cool.
So basically operating this is as easy as setting it up where you want it to be. Each space or each location, each scan point is going to be from the perspective of where the tripod is standing.
Okay.
So I'll show you kind of like what that means when I run this scan. But if I just hit go, the LiDAR laser is going to start spinning. It's going to rotate and do 4 photos. And it's going to finish. And that is essentially one scan point.
Okay.
Now, essentially, if we were going to do this whole space, I'd pick it up, I'd move it in whatever direction I wanted it to go in. So say we wanted to stand here and get a view, and then we wanted to move over here. Maybe we wanted to scan at this point, so we had a nice entrance into the area, but we could continue this direction. You kind of want to think ahead of where you're going to move to, where you've been. So this would probably be a nice, and how close you want all the scans based off of what you're going to do with the final data.
Yeah.
So if we want a really accurate scan, we'd want the scans to be closer because we'd have more data points. So then when we export that 3-dimensional data, it's got more data points, it's going to be more accurate.
So what does this see that the human eye doesn't see? Because as we walk people through this, right, we've told people about the history of the site and that there are graves that are out there.
Yeah.
So from the human eye, we're just seeing leaves, the ground, tree stumps, and those types of things. But what does this do for people that need visuals?
So this isn't really going to see anything that we can't see out here.
Okay.
It's not ground penetrating radar, so it's not seeing beneath the surface of the earth at all. Some LiDAR can see beneath a little bit of ground cover, like really high-end LiDAR can see beneath some of the ground cover. I mean, right now out here we don't have very much ground cover, it's just dirt. So when I say ground cover, I mean a little bit of the leaves. It can see through some of the tree tops. Okay. So there's LiDAR that can be flown. There are LiDAR devices that can be flown on airplanes or drones.
Oh, wow.
So if, in theory, you could have a fixed wing aircraft that's just flying back and forth over this property. And that LiDAR would be able to see through some of the foliage that we have up in the trees, especially this time of year. It could see straight through to the ground, and it could get you a really good, accurate measurement of that. Some LiDAR can see beneath some of the ground cover like this grass. And really what that is just taking a lot more data points.
Okay.
So it can see where the surface of the earth is, and then you can get a better representation of the actual contours of the earth. Okay. So some things that it could make easier to see because you've got data is the specific contours of the earth. So we were talking about depressions over there, which a lot of times could be where there's people buried. So sometimes that's hard to see with your eye, but when you can take that and strip all of the other data out of it, all the color, all of the everything, and you can just see contours, that maybe could help a little bit with something like that. this can do that to a degree, but there's also much higher end LiDAR equipment that could do that. What this is really powerful for, and what I use it for, is taking people to a space that they're not able to come to.
Okay.
There may be people that are connected to this space that just can't come here. Maybe they can't make the walk up the trail. Maybe they live in a whole different part of the country and they can't make the flight or the trip out here. Now they can very easily, on their phone or any electronic device they have that's connected to the internet, they can just drop right to that scan point that we just did, and they can walk through this space in a three-dimensional, sort of almost like a video game experience, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to say it gamifies it, but it puts people in spaces that otherwise they had no access to.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now with that one scan point that we have is we've got a single scan point here, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well, but
Yeah, we can see it.
you can see where we just stood. We now have a full 360-degree representation of it. There we are.
Yep.
And if we're lucky,
Fingers
it'll
crossed.
be able to process that into a rough three-dimensional model.
So this is this used in museums?
Yeah, Matterport is.
Matterport?
Yeah, it is. There's more spaces. I know there's a, so now you can see the point data, the 3D data that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So that's where we
Oh.
stood. So you can see all of that 3D data that's collected.
Okay.
And this is really rough. When you process it, you'll get a much better, and when you take more scan points as well, you'll get a much better representation of what that three-dimensional space was like.
Okay.
But you can even see us a little bit, but because we were moving,
Yeah.
you're not gonna see a lot of it. So then what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll process it on the back end, and it'll become, with more scan points, it'll become more accurate. You'll have more filled in mesh, they call it, so the 3D model will be more clear, and you'll be able to walk through the space and see it as is.
How does this, because anthropology was a major for you and you didn't, pursue it in a way in which you thought.
I focused in
how does
archaeology
this-
and historic preservation, though.
Okay, so but how does this, right, kind of lend itself to your overall goal coming out of undergrad with being able to capture things from a historical lens and share with others to amplify what it is that you found? Like, do you find this being not necessarily a full-blown substitute, but an additive to what it is that you've learned in school to get your storytelling narrative across?
I do, and I think this specifically applies to what my history background is, because I focused in historic preservation, and at that point, I graduated in 2009. At that point, I don't think Matterport was even on the market.
Okay.
Your only way to do something like this online easily would be like a Google Earth, just a plain 360-degree view. So you take a 360-degree photo and you move to the next space. There's no 3D element there at all, and you are limited. You're still limited by the number of scan points that we do here, but you were much more limited because somebody might do one scan point all the way up the trail, and then they might do another one right in here, and that's it. That's what you had for the space. You could do more, but that's kind of what it was. Remembering that I started as a photojournalist, and then I went to school for anthropology. I focused in historic preservation, and then I graduated. Those were my three sort of areas of interest. Photojournalism was all about documenting things as it was happening. Anthropology was all about learning about different cultures and just sort of humans and why humans do what they do. And then historic preservation was documenting things in the past and preserving them to the best of their ability. And then, of course, the through line for all that was just my interest in technology. I've always been interested in technology. So when I finally, several years after graduating, got my hands on this technology, I was super excited because I'm like, cool, I can document things as they are now. I can document things from the past as they are now, but from the past. I can use it as a storytelling technique. We have the ability to embed all sorts of other stuff in here, so like photos, videos, audio, recordings, documents. So if we had that type of stuff for this site, so let's just say we had an interview with an ancestor here, or let's say we worked together with the church to really fully tell a narrative of the people who are here right now. We could embed that at certain points throughout this space. So as people are walking through it in the digital three-dimensional space, they're learning about who's here, or what the history is.
So this information can also be put on a QR code.
Yep, you can put on a QR
like
code,
if you
a
want to put it on the
website,
trees,
anywhere.
QR code. Wow.
Yep.
So this is pretty eclectic as it relates to the things that it can do.
Yep. So and then I guess to answer your question, like how I see all those things tying together, documenting things documenting stories, finding new creative ways to put all that stuff together, and just doing it in a fun way that has people engaged.
Yeah.
It definitely took all of my interests and experiences in the past and put them into sort of one high-tech package.
Most definitely. Well, and you've done other historic sites as well. Do you mind telling us what some of those other sites were?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did the Terrell House, the Terrell General Store in Terrell, North Carolina. That building was demolished to make way for housing development. That's a general store, which again, I don't have a lot of research from it because I just basically came and scanned it while we had access to it, which was a very narrow margin of time. But we knew that building wasn't going to survive. It was supposed to have been dismantled and be put back together, but right now it hasn't been. So we scanned that, so we have representation of that building before it was demolished. It was supposed to be Civil War era, from what I understand. I scanned the Alexander Farms tenant house, which is in Cornelius, North Carolina here.
You think we can go to that?
At some point we can. At some point we can. I feel very confident we will be.
Good.
Right now is probably not the best.
Yeah. I saw that scan. It was really dope.
Yeah. So I scanned the Alexander Farms tenant house. That's a tenant house. It's the only tenant house that we really probably have access to here. The others are on private property and from what I understand in pretty bad condition. This one's in fairly good condition. That was a collaboration between myself and the developer because the developer was developing that land and that building was in their way. So we scanned it. It still exists as of now.
Yep, sure does.
But we have a digital representation of that. I've done some other cemeteries. Basically any historic space that I can gain access to, I'll go and I'll scan and just archive it until we find a use for it.
Yeah.
Preservingspaces.com has some of these spaces, but there are other spaces that I've scanned that are archived, for lack of a better term, that aren't on my website yet and that we don't have, they're not publicly available, and we're just finding a use for them. Whether that's through museums, we've talked to museums about using those scans either on their website or as an interpretive display within their building so that, ADA compliance is a conversation that comes up sometimes.
Definitely.
A lot of these old buildings don't have elevators in them, and you don't have a way to get somebody in a wheelchair, even just that's not extremely mobile. Sometimes I have a hard time getting in these buildings just because I'm 6'2", and they're difficult to navigate. So you can have a kiosk at the bottom with something as simple as just an iPad, where people can navigate the whole building there, and for some people that's enough. They don't need to go up into an attic or down into a basement. There's a million uses for this.
They don't have to miss out.
Yeah. Some of these spaces are on public-private property. Some of them don't exist anymore. There's a million reasons why scanning at one time with Matterport so that you can have unlimited access to it for as long as we have it hosted makes sense.
Most definitely. Well, that is great. It's always rewarding when you're able to connect with other storytellers and just show how diverse storytelling can be. There we go. Sun was like crazy over there. To just show how diverse storytelling can be. And Cal and I, we do that often with Hometown Chronicles USA. So again, make sure you check that out. And, coming out here to a space, and it's really quiet out here. And so I really do believe that those that were formerly enslaved that are out here are resting in peace. But to be able to come out here to see where St. Mark's did dedicate their time, their monies, and their energies into making sure that these individuals out here, their memories or their existence is not forgotten was very, very important. And hopefully we have more individuals that are doing things like this. And so that's going to be it for today. Again, you can find Cal's information at preservingspaces.com. You can find us as a collective at Hometown Chronicles USA on YouTube. And we also have a podcast that's going to be coming out here really soon. So make sure you check into that. So listen, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and share. Peace.